Shalom.
Welcome to Shebrew as we study the Torah portion through the lens of relationships. Let's get started.
This time we're going to be looking at Parsha Korah. It's B'midbar, or Numbers, chapters 16, 17, and 18. So a lot of us are very familiar with this portion of Scripture. Maybe haven't ever considered to try and dig some of the things out of it that we're going to try and dig out of it now. The first thing that we're going to read is just chapter 16, verses 1 and 2, just to kind of set some things up.
16, 1 and 2. Now Korah the sons of Ishhar, the son of Korah, the son of Levi, with Dathan and Abram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelah, the sons of Reuben, took action. And they rose up before Moses to gather with some of the sons of Israel, 250 leaders of the congregation, chosen in the assembly, men of renown.
So we're really just setting this up to look at the concept of family dissension, family rivalries. Moses, Aaron, and Korah were first cousins. If we go back and look at Exodus 6, verses 16 through 21, it tells us their genealogy. They were cousins. So, one thing, that means that they had known each other for a very, very long time. They have a very, very long-standing relationship, especially Aaron and Korah, because Moses was gone in the wilderness, and he didn't grow up, with them. So, a little more limited relationship with Moses, but still a pretty solid one. But Aaron and Korah had lived together for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So we just want to look at this uprising, this rebellion, as a matter of strained family relationships. We have one family member that feels that another one is more privileged than they are, and this leads to a violation of a command. And that would be the 10th word, the 10th commandment about coveting what belongs to your neighbor, in this case, your cousin.
Yeah.
So Korah also, we see in these verses, he expanded his family rivalry outwards to include 250 plus other leaders of Israel, and they formed a rebellion against Moses and Aaron, which was the same as rebellion against Yah himself, because Moses and Aaron were the chosen ones of Yah. So it was really a rebellion against Yah himself. This eventually led to Korah's death. It led to the death of his family, the families of Dathan and Aviram, plus these other 250 leaders, and then another 14,700 people. So nearly 15,000 people of Israel died because one person in an exalted position got jealous and coveted the position of his cousin.
Yeah. So how do you handle your extended family members? How do you deal with your cousins? How do you deal with, your aunt and uncles? Do you have a good relationship with them, or is it struggling? Do you maybe need to reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm so sorry for such and such. As cousins growing up, you're having fun, you're playing together, and then all of a sudden as adults, or maybe as teenagers, there becomes a rift, or something happens, and it's a matter of how do you handle it? How do you handle those relationships? What do you do to resolve it? Do you have jealousy against somebody, or do you covet what they have because you don't have it? It's good to go ahead and deal with those things. You don't want to be one of those people that dies,
So, here's a classic example that if you haven't gone through this, then unfortunately you probably will. But one of the elders in the family dies.
Yeah.
And now there's stuff, and multiple people have their eyes on things.
Yeah.
But in their wishes, in their last will, they left it to somebody.
Yeah.
But still, you're like, I want it. So it's like, how do you handle that kind of stuff? This kind of stuff is where these rifts come from.
Yes.
You might have had a great relationship until that, but once something like this happens, the relationships can get strained, and relationships can get broken, feelings get hurt, and then all of a sudden a great relationship is no longer. So how do you handle something like that? That's kind of the thing that we want to look at throughout this Torah portion.
Yeah.
Because this whole Torah portion is going to be for us about once the rebellion strikes, once the chaos strikes, how do you face the fallout of all of that stuff? and then how do you move forward and mend fences and bruised feelings and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. It's always good to talk about it, have those communication conversations and be like, okay, so this person is getting older. Yes, person's going to pass away. Okay, who's going to get what? If you're able to have those civil conversations, or maybe you put your name in a hat and you draw out people's names and be like, okay, this is the easiest way we're going to go ahead and divide everything up, because it's hard, it is. It is hard to deal with that. But if you're able to go ahead and deal with some of it in a civil way, then it makes good relationships, because you want to be able to have that relationship with that family member.
Definitely. It's worth the effort. As we've said many times, it's worth the effort, but it does take effort.
It does.
Next thing that we're going to look at is just, where do you find yourself in this account? If you've seen our videos before, you've studied along with us, one of the things that we try to do is, where are we inside of this account? And that's, really you get that from some of the instructions of Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, in Romans 15:4, also in 1 Corinthians 10. In Romans 15:4, it says, whatever was written before was written for our instruction, that through endurance and the encouragement of the scriptures, we might have the hope. So, when we're looking through the Torah and through the prophets and through the writings, all of the scriptures, we are looking for, the commands, the instructions, the things that we actually are trying to learn and perform. But there's also these other lessons, these instructions that we're trying to learn, because they were written for us to help us see how it went for people before, and try to learn from what they went through.
Yeah, very true.
We know, that the record of events that happened here in the wilderness, they serve as warnings and instructions for Israel. So are you able to see your struggle in the record of Korah's rebellion? Yeah. So, there's a few different, places you could find yourself. You could be Korah, coveting someone else's position or possessions. You could be Dathan or Abiram or the 250 leaders that got pulled into somebody else's conflict and had a flame of rebellion ignited within yourself by somebody else's malcontent. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't have something going on within their hearts already, but they really got fired up by another person. They got drawn in by another person. So, does that happen to you? Do you get drawn into other people's conflicts?
Yeah.
Are you like this one On, the son of Peleth, or the sons of Korah, actually? If we look at Numbers 26:11, we see that the sons of Korah didn't die. So are you like On or the sons of Korah, who initially were a part of this conflict, but after a warning from Yah through Moses, they reconsidered and they withdrew from this group of rebellious men and they left?
Yeah.
So do you take warnings?
Yeah.
Are you able to do a turnaround? Are you able to shuv or teshuvah? Are you Aaron or Moses, attacked for doing what Yah told you to do? You're doing what Yah told you to do to the best of your ability, and people are coming against you and attacking you for functioning in your role. All kinds of things. Like when we look at that particular thing, do you handle the attacks like Moses and Aaron? Yeah. We see in verse 4 that when Moses heard, he fell on his face. Do you fall on your face for Yah's instruction in handling the attack? Do you intercede on behalf of your attackers? Or do you defend yourself against your attackers? Do you go on the offense even against your attackers? Yeah. Another, probably the last place you can find yourself here is, are you the congregation? Just the whole assembly, the congregation of Israel, that are just falling in behind strong personalities and their actions. Yeah. Some would call them innocent bystanders. Some would call them enablers. It just depends on the perspective and who's calling it. Yeah. So where do you find yourself? Wherever you find yourself in the account, we need to learn the lessons that are intended. We've all dealt with, or we will deal with, and encounter rebellion. We've encountered it in the past. We're going to encounter it in the future. Either we're going to do it, or someone's going to rebel against us, or we're going to just see it happening. So what we have to do is choose our response to rebellion when it occurs. Whether it is we're an authority figure that someone's rebelling against us, because, even if you're not a high leader or something of that nature, most of us do experience the role of parents. And, you have children who will at some point rebel against you. So, you got to choose how to handle that. Or if you're actually the one doing the rebelling, how are you going to choose to do it when the rebellion starts? Because you might start rebelling and not even realize you're doing it until all of a sudden you see what you're doing. So what are you going to do when you realize, now I'm rebelling?
Yeah. And now you have to step back and be like, okay, where did I get off path?
Yeah.
How do I get back on the right path of stopping what I'm doing and then moving forward, asking God for forgiveness, asking the people that I've hurt in regards to forgiveness and the way that I rebelled, and get on the right path again. So it's a matter of looking at that picture of figuring out, okay, where am I in the story and how can I get back on the right path?
Yeah. Just a few examples. Let's look at Korah. What was going on with Korah? He was unsatisfied with the position that he was given, and he was coveting somebody else's position. Yeah. We do see in verse 10, this is part of Moses' response to him. In verse 10, he's talking to Korah, saying that Yah has brought you near to himself, you and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you, yet you seek the priesthood as well. So, if you're unsatisfied and if you're coveting, what can you do to combat that? Yeah. Somehow you got to change your perspective. You're looking at things in the wrong way, and you need to count your blessings and praise Yah for everything that you do have. Korah had a lot going for him. Yeah. He had a lot going for him. He was not just a Levite. He was of the clan of Kohath or Kohath, and he got to do things that nobody else got to do. Him and his family got to actually have the privilege of transporting the holy objects, the ark, the menorah, the altar. It doesn't really get much higher than that. But he wasn't able to be satisfied with that. So dissatisfaction is terrible. What about being influenced by someone else's dissatisfaction? Well, the easiest way to deal with that is close your ears to the bad influence. Seek the company of positive, righteous people. Yeah. If there's an old expression about lying down with dogs, waking up with fleas. Yeah. You surround yourself with people that are bad influences, and you're going to get bad results. But if you surround yourself with positive, righteous people, then you're going to get much better results. Yeah. What about attacking when you get attacked? Because we didn't see Moses do this, but I think that probably for the most part, a lot of us, when we get attacked, we go on the attack, not just the defensive. Yeah. So we need to change our strategy in that kind of a situation. Yeah. Seek Yah in prayer. Actually intercede on behalf of your attacker. That's what we can learn from Moses. Yeah. Example here. Yeah. Not just here, but throughout. Every time that the people came up and they grumbled, complained, he interceded on their behalf.
We're supposed to pray for our enemies.
We are.
We're supposed to pray for those people that persecute us. Yes. And hurt us and say all kinds of evil against us. Yes. We're supposed to go ahead and pray for them. So why not go ahead and do that? If you have a family member that you have some difficulties with, pray for them for the next 30 to 60 days and start seeing how God changes your heart. Start seeing how God starts intervening in their life, and maybe they turn around and start coming towards you and be like, hey, I'm so sorry that I did this. You would be surprised of what happens. Plus, God's going to soften your heart as well.
Excellent point. Yeah. Let's move now into chapter 17. We're going to read verses 1 through 5. We'll come back a little bit to chapter 16. But chapter 17 is basically the fallout from everything that happens with Korah and his rebellion. The earth opens and swallows them up. The 250 leaders, they get burned up. Yeah. The people cry out. The plague comes. Aaron intercedes on behalf of the people and stops the plague. And now that's how we get to chapter 17. Okay. So let's read verses 1 through 5.
Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and get from them a rod for each father's household, 12 rods from all their leaders, according to their father's household. You shall write each name on its rod, and write Aaron's name on the rod of Levi, for there is one rod for the head of each of their father's household. You shall then deposit them in the tent of meeting in front of the testimony where I meet with you. And it will come about that the rod of the man whom I choose will sprout. Thus I shall lessen from upon myself the grumblings of the sons of Israel who are grumbling against you.
So after Korah's rebellion, after his grab for power, Yah reestablishes Aaron's authority as the high priest through a miraculous sign, through the sign of causing Aaron's rod to blossom and bring forth ripe almonds. Yah made it clear, crystal clear, that Aaron was his choice to serve as high priest over Israel.
Yeah.
So Yah's now made it absolutely clear that his chosen leaders are both Moses and Aaron. Now we just saw it with Aaron. Back in chapter 16, Moses made a statement in verses 28 through 33, and he said, By this you know that Yah has sent me to do all these works, that they are not from my own heart. If these men die as all men do, or if they are visited as all men are visited, then Yah has not sent me. But if Yah creates what is unheard of, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into Sheol, then you shall know that these men have scorned Yah. And it came to be, as he ended speaking all these words, that the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the men with Korah with all their goods. So in chapter 16, that was basically, if you want to look at it later, go and look at it. This is the test of a prophet that's found at the end of Deuteronomy chapter 18. But Moses said, by this you know that Yah sent me to do all these works. So if what I'm about to say doesn't happen, then I'm not a prophet and Yah hasn't sent me. You know, I'm not his chosen prophet if this doesn't happen. But it happened. Yeah. So obviously, you know, Moses is reestablished as the leader. And then in chapter 17, we've got Aaron in verse 5 and verse 8. Verse 8, it says, It came to be on the next day that Moses went into the tent of the witness and saw that the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi had budded and brought forth buds and blossomed and bore ripe almonds. So it's shown that both of these men were chosen by Yah to serve Israel as leaders. After a time of testing, a time of strife and tension and chaos brought about by rebellion and grumbling and complaining, Yah intervened to restore stability and order in the camp by reestablishing Moses and Aaron as his servant leaders. So this is a good lesson for us on multiple fronts. First, we'll look at our faith communities. As groups of humans trying to work together to serve each other as a body, as the body of Messiah, we'll inevitably have conflict, disagreements that create tension and strife. If our leaders are truly leaders, like Moses and Aaron were truly leaders, they will intervene and restore stability and order within the community. In these times, it's important for the community to reestablish or reaffirm their commitment to follow their leaders as their leaders follow Yeshua. 1 Corinthians 11:1 does say, Become imitators of me. This is Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul speaking. Become imitators of me as I also am of Messiah. So we are to imitate in our leaders if they are imitating Messiah. Yeah. And you know, these times of rebellion, after these times of strife and chaos, we need to listen to them if they are truly our leaders, and we need to reestablish them and reaffirm, you know, our support for them, so that there can be shalom. Matthew 5:9 says, Blessed are the peacemakers or the shalom makers, for they shall be called the sons of Elohim. So, I mean, that's our faith community. But in our relationships with our family, friends, co-workers, and yes, your spouse, the same principle applies. After times of strife, tension, chaos, there is a need for reaffirming, reestablishing roles, functions, and boundaries to restore shalom, stability, and order. The tension, the strife, the chaos cannot be allowed to linger in our relationships and within our faith communities. It must be addressed, solved, plans of actions formed, committed to, and our love, respect, and support for each other reaffirmed, reestablished. This is really the choice that we have to make when we encounter rebellion.
It is, and it's a matter of reestablishing those boundaries again. It goes back to those boundaries of what is the boundaries that you have in your life. What are you going to allow or not allow? Are you going to be a part of somebody else's drama? Maybe you need to distance yourself from somebody because they have too much drama in their life and they just have too much chaos. And they're not listening to the leadership around them. So you're having to withdraw yourself from that relationship because they're just getting you more and more and more involved into whatever drama or whatever chaos that they have, And for you to have peace, for you to have life fulfilling and blessings, you might need to withdraw yourself from those situations, and reestablish, okay, this is where I need to go ahead and be, especially when it comes to the community of people, that we're around.
Yeah. The next section we'll look at, and this is just continuing on a common theme, because chapter 16 is basically the rebellion. And chapter 17 is reaffirming and reestablishing Aaron. And chapter 18 continues in reestablishing Aaron and the Levites as his servants, as the servants of Yah, to do a particular service. So let's read 18:1 through 7.
18:1 through 7. So the Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons and your father's household with you shall bear the guilt in connection with the sanctuary. And you and your sons with you shall bear the guilt in connection with your priesthood. But bring with you also your brothers, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, that they may be joined with you and serve you, while you and your sons with you before the tent of the testimony. And they shall thus attend to your obligation and the obligation of all the tent, but they shall not come near to the furnishings of the sanctuary and the altar, lest both they and you die. And they shall be joined with you and attend to the obligation of the tent of meeting for all the service of the tent, but an outsider may not come near you. So you shall attend to the obligation of the sanctuary and the obligation of the altar, that there may be no longer be wrath on the sons of Israel. And behold, I myself have taken your fellow Levites from among the sons of Israel. They are a gift to you, dedicated to the Lord, to perform the service for the tent of meeting. But you and your sons with you shall attend to your priesthood for everything concerning the altar and inside the veil, and you are to perform services. I am giving you the priesthood as a bestowed service, but the outsider who comes near shall be put to death.
So there's definitely some key phrases going in here, and we'll talk about them a little bit.
Yeah.
The first thing is why are we getting this? After reestablishing and reaffirming Aaron as the high priest, the children of Israel seem to be terrified of coming to the tabernacle. And they've just seen a lot of stuff happen. So in 17, the end of chapter 17, 12 and 13, it says, the children of Israel spoke to Moses, saying, see, we shall die, we shall perish, we shall all perish. Anyone who comes near to the dwelling place of Yah dies. Shall we be consumed to die? So, we can't blame them for being terrified of the tabernacle. All these people, their brothers, their sisters have died because of this rebellion that was in connection with the tabernacle. It was in connection with people coming near to it that had no business coming near. That's why we do have this common phrase a couple of times in this section about the stranger. It's not one of the words that is like one of the people groups. It's the same thing when we read in Leviticus when Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, brought strange fires, the Zur word. It basically means unauthorized. That had no business, being there in the first place. So if you don't have any, right to be there, then you don't be there. But now what we're going to have, and in this section, we see that the sons of Aaron and the Levites are charged with the safety of the Israelites. The Israelites are freaking out, and rightly so. So Yah tells them, you guys are going to make sure that nothing happens to the Israelites. They're going to make sure that anyone who comes near the tabernacle does so in the prescribed way, that they follow the right protocol or procedures. Aaron and his sons, as well as the Levites, are commanded 4 times in these 7 verses to shamar, or to guard. The Hebrew word is shamar, and we've spent some time, considerable time in some of our videos talking about this. A lot of the times it is translated as attend or keep, but the real thrust of what this is to guard, to protect. So some things that they're told to guard and protect.
Yeah.
The priests are told to guard their priesthood and to guard the duty of the tabernacle and the altar. The Levites are told to guard the instructions that are given to them by the priest regarding the service of the tabernacle. So basically, the Levites, they have a role, they have a function. Aaron and his sons, they have a role and they have a function, and they're told to guard those things.
Yeah.
And they're told also that they're responsible, for the things that happen there. Yeah. So they have to make sure that everybody is doing these things in the right way, so that there's no more wrath, on the children of Israel. So there being no standing tabernacle or temple today, how do we approach these instructions? How can we learn about our relationships from these instructions given to the priests and Levites? The key phrases, bear the iniquity. That's basically an idea of responsibility. Like, realize that you are responsible. Kind of a common phrase that we would say, and that we do say, is you've got to own your stuff. Yeah. You own it. You take ownership of it. You're going to bear the iniquity of everything that happens in that sphere that you're responsible for. Also, guard the duty, the shamar word. And the duty is your role, your function. That's your duty. And also the thing about the stranger does not come near. The unauthorized does not have, you don't let that interfere with your duty, with your function. You're on guard duty. So we can use the art of simile and metaphor to compare the priest and Levite's responsibility to the tabernacle and to our responsibility in our most fundamental roles as husband and wife, as fathers and mothers, as leadership inside the community, or servants inside the community. We can take these key phrases and look at it in kind of that way. The Levites' major function was protection of Israel. The priest's major function was similar. It also involved protecting the Levites from crossing boundaries that would result in their death. They both had additional functions regarding the actual service of the tabernacle, but they were guarding the lives of the people of Israel. Because coming into contact with that intense presence of Elohim inside of that tabernacle required some very special procedures. So they had to make sure everybody approached in the right way. We can compare their responsibilities with the role and function of husbands and wives inside a marital covenant. So this is where we'll look at the idea of don't allow a stranger to come near. Both the husband and the wife must protect their marriage from strange or unauthorized people and influences. You must be a guardian over your marriage.
You've got to, put up those boundaries again, of what are you going to go ahead and allow in? What other kind of influences are you going to allow in? Are you going to allow in the secular world telling you, hey, this is okay to go ahead and do in your marriage? This is okay for you to go ahead and sit and watch. This is okay for you to go ahead and sit and read, and you need to set up those boundaries and be like, no, I'm not going to go ahead and allow those different things in my life. I'm not going to allow that to come into my marriage, or take a hold of my kids, and have that be an influence over them. You need to guard those things. We are guardianship people that need to go ahead and guard over what our kids watch, what they see, what they hear, what they read. There's different programs that are just not appropriate, and we need to go ahead and stand up and be like, no, sorry, we're not going to sit here and watch this. It's the same thing for us adults. We need to be grown up and be like, no, we're not going to sit here and watch this, So it's a matter of standing up for what's right, and a matter of standing up for what God says is right, and doing what he's called us to do.
Definitely. I mean, if you really want to look at the idea that it's a common phrase where this word shamar is used, and it makes a lot more sense when you translate it as guard. And that is this conversation that Cain had with Adonai, with Elohim, after Cain killed Abel. And Elohim asked him, where's your brother? And Cain, we all know, we know the phrase, it's a part of everyday language. Am I my brother's keeper? Well, you know, do we really know what that means? But if the word shamar, and if you put guardian there, we know what that means. Am I my brother's guardian?
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, we are other people's guardians. Especially inside of the marital role, inside the familial role, inside of our faith communities. Definitely our leaders and shepherds, they are the guardians of the flock. And the other people that they appoint to do those services are also guardians of the flock. So, you know, this is a very important role, just to realize that we cannot allow the improper, unauthorized influences to come in and interfere with your marriage, with your kids, with your brothers and sisters, with you know, your extended family at large, with your faith community, with the roles and functions that you are charged with. You can't let the strange, unauthorized things sneak in and cause damage.
That's true.
So the other part is guarding the duty and priesthood. So this part is about your role and your function. Both husbands and wives, they have specific roles and functions within the marital covenant. Now, sometimes this is unique to their relationship and their individual skills. For example, financial duties, social planning, shopping, cooking, etc. So if both spouses agree that one of them is better suited to a role such as these, then both must embrace that one of them has that function. One agrees to do the role, the other agrees not to interfere with that role. That is, checking with the one who's responsible for that role before jumping in spontaneously to go ahead and do something that the other one's responsible to do. If you can practice that, then that will help immensely in maintaining a smooth ride for both of you. You know, because if one of you is charged with, let's just say the financial things, one of you, that's your thing, and then the other one starts doing stuff with the money without letting the one who's in charge of it know, then all this weird stuff is going to happen. It's going to be bad. So it's not a matter of not being able to do it. It's a matter of, before you get in their stuff, you talk to them, because they may already have stuff going on with that. Same thing with cooking, social planning, you name it. There's all kinds of roles. You know, you don't want to interfere with someone else's role, because that's their role.
It's the same thing in regards to, I mean, I remember growing up, we had a chore chart. You know, there were 3 of us kids, and some of us did, you know, dishes, unloading the dishwasher. Others did reloading the dishwasher. And if the person didn't unload the dishwasher who needed to load the dishwasher, if certain things were not done right, parents knew who to go ahead and help correct that problem. It's the same thing in regards to the marriage role. You know, when you're looking at figuring out, okay, who does what, it's nice knowing, okay, this person is going to go ahead and take care of these things. I'm not going to have to go ahead and do some of that. If you're able to go ahead and trust that person, and again, it goes back to communication, it goes back to trusting them in the marriage, you know, that when they say they're going to go ahead and pay the bills or go ahead and do certain things, that those things get done, you know. Now, if those things don't get done, then you have a breakdown in communication, and that's where you have to have those conversations again and be like, hey, what happened here? I thought you were going to be doing this, and I was planning on doing this, but I couldn't do that because you didn't do your part. Well, go back to square one again, re-sit down again, and have those conversations and communicate about what needs to go ahead and happen.
I mean, these kind of roles, you may find out 5 years into it that maybe one is not the right one to be doing it. Maybe we need to shift it to the other person and see how that goes. Or maybe we need to figure some kind of way to do it together. There's always room to reevaluate and reconsider
Yeah.
on these kind of roles that can go for either wife or husband.
Yeah.
The clear thing is the communication, you know, and watching.
Yeah.
You know, and not letting things just kind of keep on going.
Yeah.
But to actually go ahead and take care of things and to communicate about them.
Yeah. And again, own your stuff. If you're supposed to be in charge of doing something,
Own it.
do it. Own it. Do
Own
it.
it.
You know,
Own it.
thrive in it. You know, but if you hate it and that's not your gifting, well, maybe it's in your spouse's gifting, or maybe you need to hire somebody else to go ahead and do it. You know, it's a matter of, okay, who's good at what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's those that are unique to relationships. So I mean, every marital relationship is going to have a different mix of those kind of roles.
Yeah.
There's other roles or functions that are unique to a husband, and there's other roles that are unique to a wife. And the lines have gotten fuzzy on these roles in recent times. Let's say the past 100 to 150 years. But it's hard to escape the scriptural roles of husband and wife. And we're not going to do something very extensive. We're actually going to go back to the foundation, because basically looking at these few verses that are given to us in Genesis chapter 2 is basically giving us most of the information that we need about the roles of a husband and of a wife.
Yeah.
Everything else is inspired commentary on how to flesh these roles out. Let's read Genesis 2:15 through 18.
And the Lord, 15 through 18. Then the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, from any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat from it you shall surely die. Then the Lord God said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him.
So basically what we get in here is the idea that the husband in the man in Genesis 2:15 is to work and to guard. Again, that word is shamar.
Yeah.
So it's work and guard. That is where we get the idea of provide and protect from. You know, that's where that's really the foundation of that idea. And then when we get down into 2:18, we get this description of the woman, of the wife. The Hebrew word is ezer kenegdo. And it is either translated as helper or a counterpart to the husband. What the role really is filling up what is lacking in the husband, because it says it's not good for the man to be alone.
Yeah.
You know, so filling up what's lacking, completing the husband, enabling the husband to work and function in his purpose. So the two are coming together, they're becoming echad, and as that counterpart, as that helpmate, she is enabling the husband to be able to go ahead and do what he needs to do to be able to provide and protect inside of the family. So I mean, that's your just most basic.
Yeah.
You know, we can get a lot more detailed than that, but that's your most basic idea of the roles and the functions. So, you know, looking at it from Numbers 18 and the way that Aaron and the Levites were told to guard their duty, to guard their role and their function.
Yeah.
You know, these roles and these functions of man, of husband, of wife, of woman, we have to guard these roles.
Yeah.
We can't allow ideas and thoughts, interpretations, and opinions of others to sneak in and cause you to give up your role, or to try and take away your spouse's role.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the question is always going to arise, well, what if my spouse is not very good at that role?
Yeah.
Well, there's a few things that you can do. You can encourage them. You can allow them to make mistakes and learn from the mistakes. You can help them to own their role and get comfortable in their role, because if they're not used to doing that, then it's going to take a little while. You know, training wheels, and then eventually the training wheels come off. You bump, you scrape your knees, all those things. But they have to get comfortable in that role if they're not already.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is ask if they want help.
Yeah.
You know, ask. You know, don't just jump in on them, but ask if they want help.
Yeah.
Ask if they want counsel, either from you or from one of their mentors or friends that is successful at the thing they're trying to learn.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a few different ways that you can go across this. The one big takeaway is if you take over their role, they're probably never going to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be your burden in addition to your other roles that you need to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's best. It's what we can find. It's what we're taking away from this portion in the midbar in Numbers as far as guarding your role and guarding your function and not letting someone take away your role and not trying to take away somebody else's role.
Yeah.
You know, these are the things that we have to kind of work out inside of a marriage, and that's why marriage is a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey, you know, and again, comes to my brain is, you know, stay in your lane. You know, in other words, if somebody wants help, then okay, go ahead and offer some help and ask and be like, hey, would you like some help in regards to this? You know, do you know how to go ahead and do this? If you do, great. If not, I'm willing to go ahead and help you, or I'm willing to go ahead and show you, you know, so maybe next time you can go ahead and do it. You know, and all of us need to learn those things. You know, all of us, we don't know everything, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of learning some of that. And can you learn it from your spouse? Yeah, probably. Or can you learn it from a friend, like you said, you know, or a mentor, somebody, but reach out to those different people and be like, okay, what can I go ahead and do to learn to be better? You know, what can I go ahead and do to become a better spouse?
Yeah. You've got to own your role.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to guard your role.
Yeah.
And you've got to function in your role. You know, I mean, that's the kind of the stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe before any of that, you got to know your role.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You need to go to scripture and figure out, okay, what is my role? You know, and if you're still stuck in regards to that, seek some other help and be like, okay, what is it that I need to go ahead and do? What is my role as a man? What is my role as a woman? And how do I function in this role? You know, and then go from there, and then it's little pieces at a time. It's one foot in front of the other. You know, nobody arrived right away. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a matter of just having one foot in front of the other and one piece at a time that you're biting off and realizing, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. You know, it's just like a kid learning how to walk. It's one foot in front of the other. You're going to fall, you're going to stumble, but you eventually learn how to walk. You eventually learn how to run, and now we're grown adults walking versus crawling all of our lives.
Yeah. Sooner or later, you just get to the point where you just walk and you don't even think about it because you're comfortable in the role of walking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to get there.
But you have to get there. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Well, Parsha Korah, it's given us a lot of lessons to learn and apply in our relationship, both with Elohim and with each other. We started by looking at our long-term relationships with family, how to deal with or learn from the strained family relationship. Yeah. And we moved from this into the larger picture of Korach's rebellion, where we fit into that picture either as a rebel, as an onlooker, or an authority figure. Yeah. We also looked at the key takeaway from finding or creating shalom when rebellion strikes. You know, how are we going to reestablish and reaffirm roles and functions after the rebellion, the strife, the chaos occurs? Whether we're experiencing this in our marriage, our families, or faith communities, or workplaces, we have to be able to make the right choices to restore and make shalom. We want to be those shalom makers as sons of Elohim. Our last section, it dealt mainly with guarding. It dealt with guarding your marriage from strange and unauthorized influences, guarding your role and function in your marriage. We also discussed our responsibility, our ownership of our role and function in the marriage, and getting the help you need to own, to guard, to function, to know your role. Yeah. And we believe this parsha has much, much more to offer us in learning to have healthy, stable relationships, both with Elohim and with each other. So let us know how the Torah portions are helping you to have greater success in your relationships. Contact us. It's contact us at HebrewShebrew.com. We'd love to hear how these Torah portions are affecting you and all the things that you're getting out of it once you're starting to look at it in this way.
Yeah, when you're starting to look at the scriptures through the lens of relationships, you really get a lot of other information that you didn't necessarily realize was there. And so we would love to be able to connect with you. Make sure you like and subscribe our channel. You can also find us on Instagram and on Facebook. And of course, our email address as well. Contact us at HebrewShebrew.com. And of course, we also have our dating website. So if you are looking for a potential spouse, we have a lot of great members that are on there that are ready to go ahead and get married, ready to go ahead and connect with people that have the foundation of Yeshua. And we would love to have you join us. So come check out the website. It's HebrewShebrew.com, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Shalom.